Hey, folks, I want to welcome you to a brand new podcast called the What Not to Do in Entrepreneurship podcast. I'm here with my friend Sanjeev, and it's probably been about, I want to say around a year ago that he and I met. I had him as a guest on one of my own podcasts about entrepreneurship and the journey, and he told me about a book that he was writing. And so we hatched this plan, and the plan was, hey, let's do a podcast about this book to help people understand a little bit better. And this is kind of a really unusual podcast. You know, most of the podcasts that have to do with entrepreneurship, they're more inspirational, the warm fuzzy. You know, they're sharing how to drive success. And Sanjeev, I'll let you take the control of the mic here, but you've got, as they say, uh, kind of a disruptive approach to entrepreneurship. You decided to swim against the current in writing this really controversial topic, you know, what not to do in entrepreneurship. So everyone here is curious why you chose to share your wisdom and experiences in that manner.
Thank you, Michael, for the privilege of being on your podcast. It is not only a wonderful experience of sharing some of the journeys that I've had during a serial entrepreneurship career that goes back for the past 3 decades, but to bring together with it the experiences of a lot of other entrepreneurs from a global base, from a different businesses, and watching the common thread that people see in pursuing entrepreneurship and what is that they also felt was the not to do's. I thought was the sort of a fortunate thing to have such kind of incredible people, the what I call as the grit entrepreneurs working in the trenches and then sharing their experiences so other entrepreneurs, other existing future entrepreneurs may find, if you may call it, shortcuts to their success.
Mhm.
And so when I decided to look at this topic of what not to do, Michael, it was fundamentally for a very different reason. Um, Being in entrepreneurship, you always have people who have books, and you go to a bookstore or you go online and you see so many hundreds and hundreds of books and sections on how you could succeed in entrepreneurship, 7 things you should do, 10 things you should follow, 50 things that could help you. All of these things are wonderful, as tools. Some of them are from entrepreneurs, some of them are from just theoreticians who sit on and lecture. But whatever it is, those are all, if you think of them as helpful inspirational tools throughout this journey, then entrepreneurship as a career, if you may call, um, it is not a profession. Entrepreneurship could be at best defined as a career, uh, is something very, very challenging and rewarding. And you see so much growth in today's world on a global basis. There are over 550 plus million entrepreneurs. You have to think in a population of 8 billion people, 600 million, 10% of the world population is pursuing entrepreneurship. And this doesn't really count the small businesses, the ones that sell cards and wheels and things like that. So an entrepreneurial existence is the freedom of the mind that is inherent to a lot of people. And obviously, then you look at how many people in entrepreneurship succeed.
Mhm.
And if you take all these videos and these lectures and the colleges, the success rate is still stuck at around 2 to 3%.
Mhm.
Now, that's stunning to really just acknowledge the fact. that after all of these experienced people taking platforms and talking, the rate of success is still unchanged.
Mm-hmm.
So that led me to really think, what is going on here? For, on a global basis, on the spirit, because as a result of the 3% of success, a lot of inspiring entrepreneurs think this is a very risky proposition, and therefore they deter away from being entrepreneurs, creating possibilities, let their minds grow free, and avail the opportunities that are in the global economic development.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt there is the underlying thread needs to be found out or needs to be at least addressed. And my finding was that while I looked at all of these, that most of the people who pursue the path make the same mistakes over and over again. And that, according to our genius Albert Einstein, a perfect definition of insanity. To do the same things over and over again and expect different results to happen.
Right.
But one also, so you cannot just say, well, that is your damn problem. You are doing the same thing that everybody's doing. How does that help? So they need to have different tools, Michaels. They need to have tools in their toolbox so that they are aware principally about the potential repeat mistakes that they are making. And then secondly, how to do differently, think differently, so that they can avoid those mistakes or they can avoid those pathways. And that was really the basis of my controversial topic. Because, of course, I was concerned, Michael, that writing a book on what not to do's, there was so many what not to do's that was there anything left to do? And that might deter away the other half of the damn population that is so
Right.
scared of knowing what to do. So it was a sort of very delicate walk. And obviously, when I went to publishers and things like that, and some of my very close and highly successful friends, they gave me this, wisdom. They shared the wisdom that said, look, Sanjeev,
Mm-hmm.
it is not only, important, but this what not to do is a negative topic. If you said the 7 things they don't teach at Harvard Business School, or the things they don't teach at the Penn Business Schools or the Wharton Business Schools, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't looking, Michael, to teach something that the business schools don't teach. I was looking at sharing the experiences that would enable easier pathways for entrepreneurs. So that's a different level. I mean, you can call them as they don't teach in business school, but this is nothing theoretical about it. These are not theories they don't teach at business schools. These are not practicals that they don't share at business schools. These are experiences of others that really are repeated because an entrepreneurial mind is so fertile, it's so creative that it constantly seeks things that are challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And that fundamentally is also the baseline the failure rates that are so high. An entrepreneur thinks, he is convinced, he or she, by the way, is convinced. More he is, because the she's are much more smarter than he is, you know.
I'm a married man. I know that's true.
Yeah, well, all of us who are married know that, and my better half at work here every day reminds me of it. So I know that, I cannot forget that. But the point is that these people, and you got to, I have to give it to women entrepreneurship, and I will speak about that. I have a special chapter on it because these are brilliant minds, and they want to create a journey. They want to create a journey. that qualifies them because of the hardships that they have heard about,
Mhm.
they have seen other free funds go through, that they think that in order to succeed in entrepreneurship, their journey must be a journey of difficult times, painful, memories, and to the broke things. And it has become a part of the definition of the entrepreneurial culture.
Right.
And that is only because they do not know yet what not to do. Because they learn the mistakes by doing that everybody is doing. And so hence, I felt that if we have to move this needle of success, which is also the cause why entrepreneurship is called the art of success. Art means probabilities. One art, okay, let me see that. That's what the art. There is nothing methodical about it. It's chaos that is
Mhm.
creating some value.
Right.
But the art of success needs to be transformed into a science of predictable wealth creation. And that art of success transformation to that science requires a certain amount of tools. And these tools are what I incorporated in the book under what not to do in entrepreneurship. And that was my purpose in choosing this controversial topic.
Very nice. Very nice. I've got to admit, I've got a lot of questions that are just bubbling out of my brain, and I want to ask them, but I also don't want to spoil the book for anybody because I know you've got some wisdom in there. And just knowing more about the book, I mean, it sounds like you're making it a lot more accessible for people to start up a business and be successful. And I think you're doing your part, a big part, in moving really society into a direction where it's not as big of a struggle. You're removing the obstacles that are keeping people from being successful. I kind of can I get a free book? Can you send me a book sometime?
Of course, of
Okay,
course,
cool.
of course.
You know, you don't have if you don't ask, right?
Yes,
Um,
of course.
well, excellent, excellent. So you mentioned tools, and I want to kind of home in on that word. Like, I guess without spoiling the book, are there some highlights for listeners that you can share that you've incorporated in the book? Like,
Of
what are
course, of
some what
course,
are
of
some
course.
things that are in there?
Look, Michael, an entrepreneur, whoever he or she is, must know the first thing. They grow their probabilities of success by sharing, by talking. There is, if the entrepreneurs most think, oh, I have an idea, I must keep it secret, till I succeed. You don't, when you close your minds like that, you close the ability to do the right things also,
Mhm.
because then you are operating in a small world, right? And that is one of the things that I strongly recommend to entrepreneurs. Yes, there may be some few people who may copy your ideas, but then you must think that your ideas were worth copying. Right?
Yeah.
And the second thing is, my experience has been is I like to share, I like to talk about these ideas in the emerging stage, because I get to understand the challenges that that I have to manage. Now, every time you share an idea, there are more naysayers than there are appreciators.
Hmm.
It won't succeed. It's just very easy to say that, right? But by saying that, you do not ever take them personally, but that take them as, okay, what is it that he or she is saying that I am not accounting for in my purpose or in my definition of the what I want to see.
Right.
So those kinds of openness and open minds are very critical for entrepreneurs. Now, people operate in stealth modes and all of that. That's wonderful. The stealth mode is an execution process once you have defined what that you're wanting to do, right?
Right.
And all of these damn people that operate in the stealth mode still come out of the stealth mode and have to pivot. Well, okay. So what does that mean? That means in the stealth mode, you were not exposed to the right market requirements. So at the end, an entrepreneurial success is only driven by the acceptance of the market to what you do or what you offer or what you make.
Mhm.
And so it is important that there be a perfect alignment between the need of the market and the concept of the entrepreneur he or she is pursuing. And in order for that alignment to occur, and I call that alignment a transaction in business, because entrepreneurship is nothing but a repeated transaction of value.
Nice.
It is purely an overall practiced transaction of value with what you make to what somebody's willing to pay, right, or accept. So when you say somebody pivots or things like that in a stealth mode, it is it is be, it is because they have not had the inputs and the guidelines of the marketplace. Right? That's the
Right.
reason why that pivoting occurs. So my suggestion, fundamentally, I want to address these things about is that I would like to be entrepreneurship to be as open a communications platform. In my book, I will encourage as many people to call me with their challenges
Mhm.
so that we can create a community of people that are able to exchange the solutions that one has with the other, or to increase the wisdom of the database of things that are there, because somebody else has faced a problem like that, or somebody has a dot that you want to be enabled to connect. So I would like, Michael, the what not to do to be a platform of entrepreneurs to create, seek solutions for some of the challenges that they observe or that they're facing. And
Mhm.
I will, of course, make myself available to share it, to having listening to and providing whatever experiences I have, or the team that I have has put together. So that's a part of building this sort of, not just the writing the book, but building a community
Yeah.
that would allow us to create that higher probability of success. Now, as far as the tools are concerned that you asked, one of the primary tools of an entrepreneur, and there are hundreds of those, but you can think about it, is the what I created what was called as a periodic table of entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And the reason the periodic table is important is because about 150 years ago, when everybody thought that iron and copper and all aluminum were the same, a Russian scientist put all of those elements in a very methodical format. He took the chaos of elements and put them in a periodic table of materials. Because the strength that aluminum has is not the strength that iron has, and vice versa. So he put them in these atomic numbers so that when you wanted to choose a certain property, you could choose the right element of that property. And what that enabled is to transform the chaos of material sciences into a predictable sciences of strength and values that the engineers could depend on.
Right.
And I would like to have taken attempt of defining the various elements in entrepreneurship and put them in a periodic form and take a look at particular type of entrepreneurship. What are the elements that are needed to succeed in that pathway? And then an entrepreneur can say, oh, I have this, but I don't. Because knowing what you don't have is more important to finding rather than popping in the dark and find operating by the what is called by the hip.
Mhm.
And so I think that a periodic table is one kind of an element that is of entrepreneurship. It's a work in progress. It's a start, but it is something that will create awareness of what one needs to drive success. So that's one. The second is, every entrepreneur, Michael, thinks that they are going to start a unicorn. Now, out of a million people ideas that people get, maybe one or two at best becomes a unicorn.
Mhm.
Now, does that mean that the other entrepreneurs, the 9,998,000 of those are idiots because only one or two become unicorns? Or can they be called failures? Well, that is not true because in order to become unicorns, a whole bunch of things must align. You know, your ideas, market needs, the size of the market, the capital resources, all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
So my purpose was in this book is not to create unicorns, but to enable the understandings that you can create successful businesses without having to think about that you want to hit a home run. You can create successful businesses in the first 2 3 years by selling the business to someone or by bringing other partnerships. So measure of success doesn't have to be a unicorn. Measure of success has to be, has your innovation been implemented and accepted by the marketplace
Right.
for which you got paid,
Right.
right?
Is
And
it
so
generating money? Yeah.
is it generating revenue? Is it accept? Again, if you define entrepreneurship is a transaction between what you make and what the market wants, then all the rest of the things, how do you produce, how do you create repeatability, are all a step to that process. So I laid out a 7 year, typical 7 year journey in which I defined where at what elements are the risks, the rewards. Of course, if you exit early, you have lower rewards, but you
Mhm.
can become a serial entrepreneur because the definition of success gives you the confidence to do the next things better with more certainty. Right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I would like entrepreneurs to think that, if they can create shorter steps of success rather than trying to move the mountain, you can move the molehills in
Mhm.
achieving success and therefore build a serial entrepreneurship career based on smaller successes than to fail, because the higher you jump to achieve the thought process of being a unicorn, the harder you may fall. And there is nothing wrong with falling. It's just that you want to have a probability of success. And my thought process in the book is to increase the probability of success at different stages of the business. So
Right.
that's another tool that I define.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just sharing with some of the tools like that.
Right.
The one of the most important tool entrepreneurs forget is they entrepreneurship has to be about, everything has to be some kind of an equation. And for me, the 1 + 1 = 11 is the best equation of life. If Michael, you and I, our relationship doesn't, so you one, I one, create apparently 11 of value, then something is wrong. Why? Because everybody thinks 1 + 1 = 3 is a good equation. It's wonderful on the piece of paper. But in the execution process, most of the time it gets screwed up.
Mhm.
99% of the time it gets screwed up. So now you end up with 1 + 1 = 1.5. You just decimated the value of what you were creating.
Right.
So unless you look at every aspect of what you do in the value of 1 + 1, I mean, 11 is just a number I chose. So you screw it up, you make it half. So 1 + 1 = 4. Hey, you still are ahead in the process.
Yep.
So it is important to for entrepreneurial minds to think of value creation of the process in that, because it allows and it incorporates a certain buffer for the ability not to do things perfectly, which is what entrepreneurship pathways are all about. Never in the pathway of entrepreneurship do things happen perfectly, right? It has all imperfections that are put together to create the ability of success, or to make it successful. And that is what we have to work with. That is the reality. So
Yeah.
those are the kinds of tools in the toolbox. And of course, when you say what not to do, I mean, the single most thing what not to do would be something like, don't defocus yourself. Entrepreneurs think they have a great idea. 10 different types of customers think they have 10 different applications for it. The entrepreneur thinks he has invented a new bread, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But all that does, it defocuses in 10 different directions, a small little company, and guarantees nothing but distractions and high probability of failure. So I call it, don't be a kid in the candy store. Things like that. Or as I started when I said entrepreneurs think mentally, they must achieve difficulties. I call it swimming up the Niagara. Don't swim up the Niagara when there are other pathways you can swim down the river,
Yeah.
because it enables better use and higher probabilities of success. So that's the kind of things that I am trying to bring to awareness in this first edition of the book, What Not to Do in Entrepreneurship.
Love it. And you said first edition because it's not perfect. It's not done. I'm sure if you have more stuff that you want to add later, it's like, well, there's a second revision. So there we go.
Well, two
You're
things,
practicing what
right?
you preach. Yeah.
No, no, two things is every state of entrepreneurship is dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So is the learning of mind dynamic, right? And secondly, I have interviewed 25 entrepreneurs, 30 entrepreneurs in this book. Because of the reading, I will get different types of entrepreneurs. I want to incorporate their experiences in the book. It's a continuous evolution of it. I will learn some of the elements during this process that are higher priority than some of the other ones that I not even yet included in the book. But one thing is very common, and I want entrepreneurs to know this. And although most of them think they are, but in reality, when you is the power of humility in entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
Humility is one of the most powerful tools in entrepreneurship. And it is because it opens doors, creates alliances. Humility doesn't mean subservience. Humility means your openness to learn, openness to adapt, openness to pursue possibilities without ego. And there is really no place for ego in entrepreneurship.
Right.
And it is one of the things that I put together why you should not get into entrepreneurship because you want to be the CEO. That means nothing.
Yeah.
Because in the definition of entrepreneurship, if it's a transaction of value creation, where is the ego in it? So spirituality comes into play in entrepreneurship as a tool. So I have, kind of shared how would you create, how could you use spiritual existence to be fully present in entrepreneurship. I call it entrepreneurship in the present is a powerful tool. So those are some of the elements, Michael, that have been incorporated throughout the book.
Nice. Very, very cool. I'm excited. I'm like, I tend to wear my emotions on my sleeve and I'm trying to keep a straight face, but inside I'm like, yes, and this is the stuff the world needs. I wish we could talk more. I guess we have to wait till the next episode, but as we kind of wrap up, there's something you said before that I forgot to say in the intro, but this podcast is meant to be part of that community building. Like we're planning on going through some key topics together, and we're actually going to open the floor. So people are going to be able to come on and, listen in, but also ask questions so that, you can start answering questions right here,
Yeah, yeah, it is, of course, answering questions is important. I want people to know, and this platform to be about trying to say, hey, you know what? I am facing this challenge. Um, Write to me, or I'm willing to give some time, on after the book is published, to talk to some of the people, the listeners, the buyers, the readers, whatever they are. And I also would love, Michael, for you to get the questions before,
Mhm.
so we can have an open platform. Not that I want to be prepared, but of course, I would like to provide intelligent answers with examples, not just of the cuff answers, which have, some value. And so if people, if the readers, if the listeners are able to ask those questions a few days earlier, then we will even have a more productive exchange. And that is where I really would love to create this WNTD entrepreneurship platform and a podcast, so that you will, I know I admire you because you've been managing these question answers before. And I think having you is a blessing in this journey of writing and publishing and pursuing the elements of the book to the entrepreneurs of today and tomorrow.
Well, you're going to make me blush, good sir. That's quite a compliment. I can ride a high on a compliment like that for at least a couple weeks, but well, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode. I think this is really good to prime the pump and let people know what we're getting ready to do. And I think we're going to get into some really, really cool stuff. So, you feeling good
I
about
look
the
for,
next episode?
I absolutely do. I look forward to all your episodes, and more so, I look forward to hearing from from your listeners and the readers of the book, so we can really drive success in entrepreneurship to transform from an art into a science of success. Thank you, my friend, for
Thank
having
you.
the opportunity. Bye bye.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.